right, let's jump into things. Where are we at? It is 8 past 10 on the 11th of March. So look, things are kicking off a little bit earlier now. Of course, we've got daylight savings this week, so markets are all coming online a little bit earlier, which is good for us in Australia, obviously, because means that data that comes out at night isn't coming out 12:30, comes out 11:30 now, and then I think it's the start of April or so. We have our daylight savings kick in as well, and so then it'll come back even earlier. Of course, the downside with this sort of stuff is that everything starts that little bit earlier as well. So gold market's now opening at 9 instead of 10. We're going to see DXY probably come on. Well, DXY will come online at 10:45 to 11, opposed from 11:45 to 12. Which again, it's not the end of the world. It's definitely enough time to sort of get the analysis done in the morning. And it just sort of means that you can get that sort of flow of volume sort of coming in a little bit earlier and get on with the day as well. But it's certainly something to keep in mind because when you're sort of like getting prepped up for the day and you're getting ready for these levels, sorry, for these flows of volume to sort of come in, you want to know what time they're going to be coming in so you can sort of plan accordingly for them. Anyway, look, I'll start off with gold because we saw a very sort of choppy day yesterday, and that's some big sell downs and big recoveries and that, and actually, it was perfect trading environment for me through yesterday. Sort of like we had some nice sort of pullbacks. What's going on here? Buy under sort of 2900. I didn't ride it all the way back up, but caught part of this move back here, down here, part again, blah blah blah. And then of course at the end of the sort of middle of the night, 3 o'clock, I'm kind of seeing it here. It kind of started to just sort of give way, and obviously sort of gave up that 2900 quite strongly and popped down under here. So this is that sort of little area range that we had been sort of playing with for the better part of a week or so now, and it came out and closed out and consolidates is currently consolidating outside. So look, we have sort of seen a couple of little moves. This is 15 minutes, so get onto a reasonable sort of time frame here. But as you can see here with the 4 hour, it sort of shows it a little bit better. We've come up here, we've consolidated and moved out to the bottom. It's tried to sort of push back up, and exactly where it's pushed back up, if you take this very low first chance here, is right on these wicks that I had down the bottom here, and people going, yep, boom, that's enough for me, and they've got out here. So look, you've got your break, kind of somewhat of a retest. I don't know. We'll have to sort of see how this one sort of plays out. And then sort of obviously, should you take out overnight lows at 79, we're probably sort of looking down, I would say probably around that sort of maybe 62 to be that next sort of level on the downside through here. And of course, potentially, you're looking at these moves back down to sort of towards the 30s. Should this sell off sort of continue and sort of push down here? I'm still in the camp of things moving a little higher, but as I keep saying with these things, there's always the chance to shake out quite a few before we do get that move up there. I was surprised that, if it was going to be, if we are seeing this to come down and move over here, gold in its typical fashion, particularly with these consolidation periods, would like to sort of go up, smash a bunch of stops, and then drag in some people and then move down. So I'm a little bit sort of cautious about whether this is a full sell down. I'd sort of I'm waiting to sort of see if this is worth a sort of short through this area here. It does look like it wants to sort of go down here a little bit, but again, look, this is a 4 hour, we're oversold, things are just opening up now. DXY didn't really sort of move too much last night, so I don't really feel like that's the sort of catalyst for it all. But we did see a sell-off across the board on a number of things. Aussie got smacked on that one, of course, as it does. If anything gets sold off, it's Aussies there as part of it as well, and they're like, yeah, let's sell Aussie as well. It's kind of like just a little the little cream on top of selling things in the market. But equity markets got smacked down another. I think S&P was down like 100 points or something like this, which is a significant drop off through the session, particularly just to sort of start off the week. So yeah, look, it wasn't just isolated just to metals. It was definitely around the board. It wasn't like a US dollar buying spree that kind of really like, oh, everyone. I mean, look, DXY is on support. I'll get to that in a moment. It did get a little bit of a push up, but excuse me, nothing nothing sort of spectacular. I'm just having a look at how it correlated on a different chart. Nah, look, I mean, nothing to sort of say, oh, well, that's definitely where the flows have gone. So, look, without a sort of clear cut catalyst, um, it makes me cautious to sort of say, is this really okay pushing down here? Because again, with these things, I look for the sort of the change, what I call the change of the landscape. Have we just had some data or headlines project? And look, there is, with all possibility, the chance that I've just missed something. But there's nothing glaringly that's been made obvious news-wise, as in headlines or, I mean, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's no sort of data sort of coming out. Let's just have a double check of this just before I sort of get into a whole sort of song about it. But yeah, as you can see, there was nothing sort of coming out sort of news-wise through that period. There was no sort of major headlines that sort of really go, oh wow, geez, now we need to sort of change these things, as in like, gold's the safe haven while war's happening and peace has been declared. These kind of things are the kind of things where it's okay, maybe people are sort of starting to think about it a little bit differently. That's a possibility, but the fact that it all sold down together, it's not isolated to precious metals, it's not isolated to just metals, equities, Aussie, all these things sold off together. Money's not going into DXY. We've got to think, where are those flows going? I mean, like yen has certainly sort of been picking up. Have a quick look at sort of what yen's doing here. So as you can see, yen's sort of strengthening, but around that sort of 3 o'clock time. This is the 3 o'clock here. I mean, look, there's nothing really to sort of note through this period here. It's not sort of like going, wow, that's where the flows are going. How did euro turn up? Euro just hanging at the top over here. As I said, 3 o'clock was about the time that it sort of gave up, and so nothing much happening over here. So it just makes you sort of think. Also, not that I really care what Bitcoin does, but Bitcoin was selling off a little bit prior to all this sort of stuff. But point being, if I go back to gold here, is there's no sort of major catalyst that I can see that sort of goes, okay, yep, wow, let's all dump it, dump it, dump it. So, I'd be cautious to be sort of shorting too heavily through this period because, typically as gold goes, it likes to sort of particularly through these consolidation periods, as I said, fake out to the bottom, trap things, and then move back up through here. Look, it's a big call, particularly because we've moved outside this range, we've closed outside one, two, and we're in the third, so two closes outside the range here. To sort of go, oh, yep, so this is the pullback to go back up here. Look, if we take this as the move, take that to the high there. So in sense of this sort of flaggish kind of move through here, we're at, as you can see, the 50%. Oops, not that one. And this is the one we wanted. So we're seeing these deeper pullbacks. This is a close enough sort of line that you can say that hey, it's respecting it here. And I think this is the point that I was sort of making before in that if you take out overnight's lows, okay, fine, we can say that this is a bit of a move down here. But of course, this move like this with a solid straight line at the top, deeper, this is what I've sort of highlighted a number of times as a very typical sort of silver pattern. Where they like to sort of shake, and then sort of move to the top side here. So as I said, look, gold typically, as it likes to move, it generally does this on smaller time frames. I don't remember it sort of off the top of my head doing something on such a large time frame like this. But consolidates, fakes out the bottom before it explodes higher. So certainly, if this comes back and if this comes up into this top zone over here and moves out here, I would say that this is the move that's going to sort of move up over here. Look, I know it's a tough call on that, particularly as we're sort of rolling over like this down here. But I'm just saying, in sense of sort of how gold typically likes to break things, it doesn't generally sort of just go and then break down. you could say that this little move up where we had NFP um, could be the little one that have faked out the top, because if you see this here, it just took out that high wick from the week. So you could say that that would be the sort of move that sort of led to this, but as I said, I haven't seen it on a larger time frame like this after such a sort of long sort of week long consolidation. But certainly, if this starts to move back into this area, that is something that I will take as a very bullish sign that we may sort of be moving back up and then pushing out to the top side over here. The downside of this, as I said, go underneath 79. So where is it now? 84 or so. Um, I think he's probably looking down to sort of at least test the sort of mid 50s, if not go to sort of body fills of these down to 44. So these are the two levels that I'd be looking for the downside. Should it somehow muster the rally to sort of come back up and push up through here, I'm going to take that as a very bullish sign that this could be just the little fake out to suck people in, suck in the shorts, and then rip up to the top, stop out the longs, rip out to the top side there. As I said, this little sort of setup like this with the solid line at the top, deeper pullbacks, typically more silver. But as we've seen with silver, this kind of thing can lead to quite strong breakouts as well. So we'll have to see how it goes. Certainly at the moment, it's opening up, and it's not looking like it, not looking like it wants to sort of fly off to the top. But as I said, we've got to wait for that sort of volume to sort of come in and see what they do with this today. But bottom of the wick, I think, is the confirmation this is a fail, which will take you through this sort of falling support here as well, as it does look like it's kind of rolling over here before it comes down into that oversold area. Let's have a quick look on the daily as well. So as you can see, yeah, look, it's down, it's up to 50%. So if you look at these green ones through here, so it made it back up to the 78% of that bounce. It is actually putting in, as you can see, a lower high here. Big tests through these areas. This is why we have, the mid 50s as the sort of target down here to see if this can hold. This is obviously through that daily zone. So that would be your sort of target down mid 50s on the bottom there. And then if you punch through that, well, as I said the other day, this is kind of the thing that you're looking at, something to this sort of effect. And we could be sort of moving back down to retest these 2700 levels. But that's getting ahead of ourselves right now. Let's see sort of what they do through the session, particularly more just sort of what happens when volume sort of pops in today. All right, flip along. So might as well cover silver while we're doing that as well. As you can see, had its consolidation, closed down underneath, bang, coming down here as well. Can we line this up? Similar sort of thing with those lower highs here, though I'm not as convinced with silver in the sort of period. The only reason being is I would have liked these two highs here to have come up and tested that 32.70. This would have been that nice little sort of thing that we look for. So I've got them on these ones here. I can't be bothered finding and referencing them off the top of my head here. But as we can see, sort of like, to close out the bottom of the side here, you found support, within a couple of cents of sort of this little previous highs here. This could be just big back test range here, and it could see it move back up. But I'm not a big one sort of convinced with silver at this point. We'll see how we go. I mean, look, obviously, if gold moves back up, it'll probably drag silver a little bit with it. But yeah, it's not my trade of choice at the moment. I would want it to hold 3180s. I think if you fail 3180, obviously you're coming back down to test 3140, mid 40s, these sort of this little right shoulder area through here, which lines up with the bigger time frame zone that we've got through here. But for the time being, we are seeing this top line here sort of falling resistance respected quite strong. Quite well, sort of like, took a couple of hits, a little bit weaker each time. And this is the thing, you got to look at some of the subtleties of these things, whereas it's only coming in a couple of cents lower, but it's certainly, you know what I mean, look at that buying pressure as it was trying to get up here, it was just completely just bang moving down. And that's a subsequent sort of sell down of it there through there. So look, back above 32, 36. Let's just put in a little alert here, just sort of say recovery effort. moving through there. All right. Flip along, we got Aussie, and Aussie sort of, as we can see, it's holding its zones here. We wanted to see this at a level high. I actually thought this would come down and test it sooner yesterday, like sort of through the session there, but obviously it ground up, 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 up. Actually did a fairly good little sort of push up into this previous zone before, obviously, as we said again, if you look at this on the 1 hour, around 12 o'clock, so I guess US session opening and that, it just started to melt down and dribbling into the lows down here. So look, it's found itself a little bit of support through this zone here. I would say you want to sort of kind of hold this. If it can hold, what's that, 60s, and you know, it's obviously, this is support, support, little resistance. You want to get back above 87. So let's put recovery effort on it there. And again, sort of the reason I'm kind of looking at these things in the through the lens of sort of like, okay, where's the recovery effort opposed to where's the continuation effort, is just because I can't see the catalyst that sort of sent this thing down, other than sort of you know, US sessions opening up and everything else being sold off, and Aussie is a little bit of a proxy for it all being sold off. See if we can line anything up with this. Not perfect on the bottom down here. You know, again, these are just sort of like, you know, if this were to be a channel, you got a pretty good line up between these two and these two here. Again, I think if this recovery effort goes up here, you can move back up towards sort of 63 and make this a little bit of a trap out, feed out. You break through this lower level down here, I think you're moving down to 62, 62.40s as your sort of next sort of stop to the downside. But I think above 87, I think you could kind of sort of see a little bit of a recovery. So what I'll just do this to, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You can see the two support and resistance zones. Breakout box just to make it a little bit clearer. We are seeing the tick up here a little bit, but you know, as again, it's a funny time of the morning. I've still got to even mentally sort of calibrate myself as to sort of when I'm expecting sort of volume sort of coming in. Of course, you know, just add an hour onto everything. So it means basically sort of in, you know, 20 minutes or so, we should start to see some flows start to come into the market. Just have a quick look at the news coming through here. So Trump's speaking at some point, so something to keep an eye on here. Is this correct? Consumer sentiment, 0.1% up to 4%. Are we really that pumped up about stuff? You know what I mean? That's a big move up there. You know, actual greater than forecast. You know, I mean, hasn't really had a massive impact, obviously, as you just saw in the market. Impact has been mild month to month. Financial conditions, consumer spending. Yeah, maybe this comes down to the fact that we had that rate cut and everybody's got an extra $80 in their pocket a month, and everybody's like, "Whoa, yeah, confidence up through the roof. That's great." Look, I mean, obviously, as I said, it's holding this area down here. It's a small tick, but it's a tick in the sort of camp of a stronger sort of Aussie dollar through this period. But as you've read, small impact. As you can see, small impact. So I still think that this is the little area you need to see the break. I think sort of it's either really going to have, there's a little arrow gone, a move up like this, or a move down like this. But that's the box that I'm looking for. Excuse me. All right, and across the DXY, because it's we've seen it actually just tap 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 into these sort of like lower zones here. It's not really doing a great deal though. You know what I mean? As I said, I thought we may have got a bit of, as per the weekend, and I thought we may have got a bit more of a drive higher, but it dribbled down, bounced, dribbled down, bounced, dribbled down. Let's see what happens through this area here. Honestly, this kind of looks like it's just basing to get a little bit of a rounded thing. So this could be potentially, even though it hasn't actually moved, could be potentially something that you're looking at for, you know, a rounded bottom through this zone, something like this. around the bottom there. Um, which means basically, obviously, it's just it's this was the previous 61% line. I don't really count these lines when they move the other way, but I can put this as a little zone because you can see that obviously it's been 1, 2, 3 held along these zones here. These are still the levels that I'm kind of looking for on any sort of recovery move. I don't think this is going to be the kind of thing to be the rounded bottom to come all the way back up. If that were to be the case, you would probably see at least 1 or 2 more touches down the bottom here. You want to see this come down, and effectively what you want to do is sort of see that you've got, your buyers down here, and then you want to see the buyers move up like this. So it means that you probably still have at least a little bit of a push down here, and then see confirmation that the buyers have actually gone from this point here to this point here, pushes back, comes up here, buyers then sort of tackle, whoop, toes, then push up again, tackle the sellers at this level, push through, and keep driving higher. That's the kind of thing that you want to see. So I don't think, I mean, look, let's see what happens. We've only got 20 minutes or so before it sort of pops out. It could gap up or down here, but I would say that most likely you have a little bit more stuffing around. It looks a little bit too tight. It's like just from a sort of point, that's what you're looking at. It just doesn't look right. Again, unless you have a catalyst or you have something that changes what I call changes the landscape, a move like this just doesn't look correct. Move like this, plausible, definitely. But you want to see the sort of progression of the buyers. Move up here, tackle the sellers, depletion of the sellers at this level. Sellers will then retreat back to these other levels where we've seen them previously. 104, 104.20, 104.40, and so on and so on, moving through these zones over here. So yeah, we'll see how this opens up in a few minutes. I'll see, the buyers are sort of definitely sort of in terms of buying pressure, they're moving up here a little bit. But I think sort of like first thing is through here and just going to say push. Low type on red zone. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do see this. I mean, look, this is election gap area. It's a big area that we've had marked out for ages back through this area here. We could see that this was a big launch, apart from the fact that this is where the gap was. Remember, this is when, this just shows how much the news can be sort of used to, the advantage depending on how people are trading it. Carmela's a good chance. Actually, Carmela's going to do better. Carmela's going to do better. Yeah, no, she isn't. She's an idiot. She got absolutely destroyed. Anyway, beside the point. So as I said, look, I could see this as being an area where you would expect it. It's just around the 61%, which is this orange line of its large move from the 50 base point cut that it did back in, was it October or something around that time? Look, I do think that this could potentially be a little bit of a base here. I don't think it's going to be the one that sort of sends us back up to the very top. But I do think, there's a reason for markets to be buying it a little bit, or at least sort of like, pairing some of their profits and that from their short positions around this zone over here. And this kind of movement up through this could show us what's happening sort of with DXY over the next couple of sessions. Remember, we've got CPI this week. It is expected to sort of tick down a little bit. So we'll see how much the market believes that. And if they do, it's going to be weighing on US dollar till that data comes out. All right, flip it along and we're on to copper. So copper tried to bounce, and now it's just dribbling. So let's just pick some highs and some lows. Not a big fan to call it a wedge, but it is kind of wedgy kind of thing moving down through here. I think so really you just got to get back up. I had a big spike yesterday on the opens and then obviously sold into and then just chop, 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 chop. It's not a real sort of full commitment to sell down, as you can see how choppy it is. This is your commitment to your move up kind of thing. So coming back down here, look, it could undo this big large move through here. I think it's got a couple of levels of support sort of in there prior to this though. So I would say that sort of like potentially this seems to be respected pretty well, I would say. I mean, 3 or 4 touches and that sort of coming through here. 5 touches actually, if you include that start one. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of little rally effort up here. I still think that really you probably could almost sort of drag a little box around this zone here now and say that this is your kind of area that it'll sort of trade between. Um, see some sort of little rally effort up here, maybe sort of hit resistance. It'll hit resistance once it gets this, or you'll see some sort of reaction at least. But again, just to fill out this thing, it could sort of definitely sort of get a little bit of a push up here before maybe another retest on the bottom there. But yeah, I would be surprised if this just melts down through here, just from a structural sort of standpoint. And also the fact that obviously there's been something that's been driving this all the way up like this. Again, I'll have to look closer at the news, but I can't see anything that says, oh, okay, panic stations and let's change it all. Other than the same headlines that have been coming out, you know, over the last couple of weeks, like the Zelensky stuff and Russia and all these sort of bits, but there's no sort of larger progressions of those bits of news, is my point. You know what I mean? They're there, but they were also there when we were moving here. They were also there when we were making these moves, or these sell-off moves, or these moves, or these moves. So you know what I mean? It's nothing new, or there's no new sort of thing that's gone, oh, yeah, bang. That's definitely what it is. This. And it's just sitting around that 61% of this little push up through here. All right, and finally just finish off with China, because China we saw a little bit of a push up, but this is the negative divergence we saw sort of coming into the end of the week, which is this one here on the 4 hour. So look, it definitely pushed back up. We could see this. It's tried to sort of come up and reclaim this little level through here. So 725 seems to be the level that we want to sort of see if it's going to hold or not. If this sort of comes down through here, I think bounce, second effort to try and sort of, if they wanted to continue it, that would have been the time to do it. You got a little level that you would be sort of targeting up above. That second effort just dribbled up and that didn't quite make there. Now, obviously, early part of this session is kind of moving down. So I think sort of like if we get back under the 725, then this is just a little bit of a squeeze and then bang, push down here. This will see Aussie sort of maybe recover just a little bit. Realistically, as we said, look, this is kind of what we expected, a bit of a sort of consolidation through this period over here. This being the big level down the bottom over here. It's oversold, it's ripping, it's tipping over here. It does look like it wants to push down a little bit more. So if we take out this level here, break it back towards sort of major supports, which, you know, oversold, 4 hour, second effort didn't make it through the top here. Take out that sort of little bounce high, bounce low, which is obviously a little bit of a support area, support resistance, swapping over both sides. If you can't hold this level, this is where you're coming back down. And as we know, this is a major, major level. So it's not going to go easily. As we've seen, it's been tested a number of times. But once it does go, I think it'll be big. But, you know, it means you've got to deal with a little bit of the sort of back and forth and that prior to it all as well. Excuse me. All right, cool. And lastly, onto gold silver ratio. Look, more or less just sort of consolidating. We could see that previously it liked to sort of little consolidate through this zone here. And we're seeing similar price action through here now as well. So again, look, they're pretty well defined little levels. They are sort of holding quite well, as you can see, support, support. First little test of resistance, second little test of resistance, buy sitting around here, buy sitting around here. So I think sort of, you know, moving back up here, not good for metals. Not good for metals moving up over the side over here. Maybe gold might sort of hold up all right. But I think sort of certainly this is where you're continuation in metals from a break to the downside there. Again, consolidations kind of favor the direction that it's come into, even though this was a small little shakeout push up. Moved into this here, came into it down this time, consolidating. It's moving up into an oversold area. If this rolls over and comes back down here, this could just be the fake out of metals or gold, at least, that we were sort of seeing just before. and we could see things move. But again, look, they're pretty well defined little levels that we have. Let me just drag this across through here. Should you break under here, I mean, obviously 88 is is the next sort of keen area where we've seen sellers previously. Sorry, buyers from previously. Yeah, actually going all the way back here. There's another little level just underneath it. But as you can see, all the way through here as well. Boom, boom. I mean, how many times do you need to highlight it? So, that's obviously going to be a pretty tough level to sort of get through that sort of 88. Should it start to sort of come back down here. But I think first things first, get out of this little sort of consolidation box that we've got going on here. All right, so where are we at? 10:39. Cool. 30 minutes are a little bit quicker today. Well, somewhat, still rubbing on a bit. Have a look. What have we got news-wise in that? So we've got a bit of Japanese data sort of coming out. Again, doesn't super sort of impact us. Yen still simmering in the background, still sort of garnering a little bit of sort of strength with things. So certainly something to have on the radar. Moving forward from that, things that really are affecting. We've got business confidence. See if this sort of goes in line with the consumer sentiment in that as to sort of because obviously consumers being end product kind of people, business confidence and that sort of obviously sort of slightly further up the stream perhaps or different sector of the market. But apart from those two, which both aren't major bits of data, there's not really a lot going on through Asia today. We do have jolts tonight. Job openings up fairly flat. So unless we get a big shocker there, I don't see that sort of moving the market a great deal. And then, of course, tomorrow night, 11:30 instead of 12:30, which is I keep saying is better. We have got the CPI, and as you can see with these slight little ticks down, so the month on month coming down a little bit. The core, sorry, month on month coming down one tick. This month on month sort of CPI headline and that down 2 points there, and stabilizing around 2.9% potentially for the year on year. I do also see we got BOC overnight as well. Not that it directly impacts, but it's always just good to see what these other central banks are doing, and they're looking at a 25 base point cut as well. So yeah, all those everybody seems to be well into their sort of cutting cycle at the moment. Obviously, Aussie sort of tested the waters, put its toe in, and it doesn't sound super dovish even just after it's done its sort of first little cut there. So we'll have to sort of see how that one sort of plays out. But yeah, that's it from me.